Yeah, morning all. I'm only going to be able to put together a very quick video today, but I wanted to, in the interest of just keeping this rolling every single day, just put out something. I recently had a comment in the comments section talking about the baloney, I guess, that the Titus Flavius kind of connection has to all of this. And you said you should just go with revealed truth. And what I'm trying to do is exactly that. Every time I'm talking about something, I'm making sure I give the citations, and I'm interested in bolstering every part of the work that I'm doing with primary sources, going straight back to the documents themselves, which for the most part I've read. That's the Church Fathers, and obviously the Bible. Not all of the Old Testament. I'll be frank, but. And I'm planning to get through the whole thing. It's just a very long work. So yeah, no, I'm really trying to be absolutely methodical and rigorous in my studying of these subjects here. We find a complete lack of this coming from Orthodox and Catholic and so on Christianity. So many Catholics, so many Christians do not know their own books. I continually run into this, and they don't know the history of the surrounding centuries there, the advent of Christianity. So many people believe in oral stories, in the oral record, which we actually don't have access to because it was oral, and it's not there historically. We can only guess what all of this is. And people like Bart Ehrman, who's a secularist, has written books like Did Jesus Exist, and has made the same mistakes as Christians here in just assuming that the gospel traditions hold the truths, which is really strange. If you take as an example the resurrection story in Paul, and then try and make that fit with the gospel tradition stories of the resurrection, they're completely different. They're completely at odds with each other. Peter and so on are mentioned, and then the 12. And the 12 are likely a group of characters there, like we saw the other day, the Qumran community, which formed a kind of central power within these churches. Were not likened to the disciples, according to Paul, of the New Testament. Anyone could be an apostle who had seen the revelations, who had understood what Paul was saying. Many people are mentioned in Paul's letters who are apostles, but they have nothing to do with the disciples, clearly, because they have different names. Otherwise, we get James, John, and Peter. But then we have no other disciples that are listed appearing quickly. The Greek word there, I can't remember it, but appearing very fleetingly in front of people. He appeared to Peter, he appeared to John, and to me, and so on. Just an appearance. But the word appearance there is a quick mystical. It conveys a mystical appearance, not living on the earth, coming back for 40 days, as it is in Acts, and even the synoptics they all vary in their stories regarding the gospel, resurrections. This is totally incompatible with the gospel traditions, which come later. So I just wanted to riff very quickly. I'm going to do another video soon about Joshua. Coming from his father was Jehozadak, and his relationship here, what very much seems to be a typology in one of the Old Testament books. Zechariah, Zechariah, which I've mentioned in my book, and that this Joshua and Jehozadak and so on, the father, is similar to Joseph, if you've noticed, but he again carries lots of these symbol references here, and these parallels to Jesus Christ. He's a king, he's a priest, and so on. All of these the really interesting parallels here. This is all we can find. Actually, there's so much in the gospel accounts that just are taken, pillaged from the Old Testament. People call it prophecy, other people call it copying. This was a part and parcel of the literature during these periods. It's what the Greeks and the Romans did with emilatio and imitatio, and this mythic kind of copying, but trying to outdo and add new details to archetypal stories, which they loved. They really loved this epic literature. So this is just the Jesus story was just, as far as I'm concerned, the next level, which helped to consolidate Jews in the Roman world and this new faith that percolated out of the Old Testament. Clearly, Jesus is a type for multiple characters. This is what we know. This is what we can actually verify. So when we're talking about, as I have gone through many times, when we're talking about trying to trace the biblical Jesus, we are left with crickets. We're left with crickets involving the Holy Family. Why wouldn't Mary immediately be venerated? Why wouldn't we get all kinds of archaeology and mentions of and records and people talking about people that were talking about Mary in the first century? Why not all of the other disciples? Why is it that everything we get comes from the second century, at least the mid second century? Why is it that Justin Martyr doesn't know so many key facts of the Christian story there? Why is he not referencing when the cluster there that we find of the Sermon on the Plain or the Mount? Why is it that he has to hearken back to Marcion's version of these edicts, these stories about morality? Why can't he quote Matthew and Luke? Why not? What's that about? These had all evidently been around for 50 or 60 or 70 years by Justin Martyr's time. What's going on there? Clearly, if we look at the established, practical, primary sources, a story begins to unfold. Even if we look at Titus, Timothy 1 and 2, and Titus, most of those Gospels, which have been deemed now quite consistently to be not written by Paul and written into the second century, not part of Marcion's collection as well, appearing really with Irenaeus in 180. Why is it that those Gospels are like there are about 3 references to an historical Jesus, fleeting lines, and at least a couple of them, Timothy 6, I think 3 is it, but you can check this out, are considered interpolations. Every other reference to Jesus Christ in these late epistles are still celestial Jesus talk. Why is that? Let's think about this. Papias and Ignatius only appear, and the first time they appear, and it's fan-fictional stuff. This is not really viable history. Polycarp's martyrdom story is ridiculous. Ignatius's story with him sojourning and taking quite circuitous routes, and then putting himself in positions where he could easily just be whisked away by Christians. The Romans wouldn't have done that. They are simply pragmatic people. They would have gone straight to Rome very quickly with more than 10 people. And they only appear in Irenaeus again. And it looks as though Irenaeus is a really important individual for consolidating. Obviously he was, because he's the first guy to mention Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Before then you get Justin. What does he say about the Gospels? Not much. Anyway, peace and love, and I will see you tomorrow. Cool.